The station clock insisted it was local midday, which was impressive given that the nearest star was an administrative concept rather than a physical object. The human knew better than to argue with clocks owned by the conquered ledger. They had a way of being right in the most inconvenient sense. He was standing in line to dispute a docking surcharge that had tripled while he blinked, when the woman ahead of him made a small, strangled sound, half gasp, half mathematical error. The line froze. The air flickered as the ledger's interface unfolded itself, projecting columns of glowing figures that pulsed like a judgmental heartbeat. "That's not possible," she said, not loudly, but with the calm horror of someone watching gravity reverse. The human leaned sideways, peering past her shoulder. "Let me guess, late fee." She turned, eyes reflecting the numbers like they were burning themselves in. "My transit sponsor dissolved while I was en route. The residual liability transferred to me, with interest." She swallowed, "with cultural penalties." "That sounds festive." She did not laugh. The interface chimed, helpfully announcing that her obligation could be resolved in one of 3 approved methods. Credits she did not have, labor she was not biologically compatible with, or companionship. The word landed badly, like a translation file that had never been stress-tested. The woman went very still. "This option is rarely chosen." Behind them, someone coughed. The line resumed breathing. "Define companionship," the human said. She hesitated, then spoke as if reciting a medical warning. "Continuous voluntary proximity to a sentient being for a fixed duration. Shared space, shared time, emotional availability within regulated parameters." She glanced at him, clearly expecting recoil. 2 months. The ledger added a cheerful note: non-transferable, non-fungible, non-refundable. The human shrugged. "Okay." The interface stuttered. She blinked. "You accept." "Sure," he said. "I've done worse for free." That earned him a look sharp enough to cut through vacuum. "You do not know me." "Statistically," he said, "that's true of most people I agree to spend time with." The ledger requested confirmation. Requested it again. Then, in what might have been irritation, finalized the bond with a sound like a disappointed chime. They were relocated instantly, because the system disliked witnesses. One moment the station was buzzing with unresolved lives. The next they were in a modest habitation module that smelled faintly of sterilized air and policy compliance. She stood rigidly in the center of the room, hands folded, posture precise. "The contract permits silence for up to 6 hours per cycle," she said. "Conversation is optional but may be efficient." "Efficient conversation," he repeated. "My favorite kind." He dropped his bag, which immediately tried to roll away as if embarrassed to be there. He caught it with his foot. "I'm guessing you want ground rules." "Yes." She activated a thin band around her wrist. A counter appeared, already ticking. "Emotional output must not exceed." He flopped onto the nearest seat. It adjusted itself grudgingly. "We can start with food." "I'm starving, and existential obligations always make me snacky." She frowned. "This is not a leisure arrangement." "No," he agreed, "but it is time, and time goes better with snacks." The counter hesitated, then continued ticking, as if unsure whether this qualified as a violation. She watched him like one might observe a mild anomaly, not dangerous but certainly incorrect. "You are not behaving as expected." "Give it time," he said. "I usually disappoint on a longer timeline." For the first time since the ledger had spoken her debt aloud, the tension in the room bent, not breaking, just warping slightly. She did not smile, but the light in her eyes dimmed a fraction, like something powering down from emergency mode. Outside the module, the conquered ledger logged the arrangement as active, balanced, and proceeding according to established models. Inside, the human rummaged for food he wasn't sure would exist, and the woman stood in the middle of the room, realizing, with no small amount of alarm, that 2 months had just begun, and already the numbers felt wrong. The ship insisted on waking him with a legal disclaimer instead of an alarm. He opened one eye as the ceiling scrolled liability clauses in soft blue light, each sentence politely threatening consequences for unauthorized consciousness. "Cancel," he said. The ship paused. "Clarify, cancel awareness, cancel debt acknowledgement, cancel emotional entanglement." "Breakfast," he muttered. Somewhere behind him, a sound like restrained annoyance clicked twice. "Your vessel is poorly disciplined." He rolled onto his side. "It's a long story involving an update patch and a very stubborn ethics committee." She was already upright, seated with her hands on her knees, wristband glowing faintly as numbers crawled forward. She watched the counter like it might bite her if she looked away. We have consumed 12% of the allotted duration. No measurable productivity has occurred. False, he said. I learned my ship has abandonment issues. The ship chimed. Correction, attachment subroutine engaged due to prolonged isolation. See, he pushed himself up. Growth. She tilted her head, the light along her skin flickering briefly. You equate inefficiency with value. What? I equate being awake with value, he said. Low bar, I know. The galley unit slid open on its own, presenting two nutrient blocks with identical enthusiasm. She stared at them. These are symmetrical. What? Don't let that fool you, he said. One tastes like regret. She did not move. Shared consumption is not mandatory under the terms. Neither is breathing, he said. Yet here we are. The counter hesitated, again. She picked up a block, examined it as if it might confess. If I eat this, the system will log it as joint activity. Congratulations, he said. We're rebels now. She took a bite. Her expression did something complicated and then settled into offended neutrality. This is inefficient fuel. High praise, he said, chewing. Most people swear at it. The ship's viewport flickered, stars rearranging themselves into something that resembled a progress bar. A notification bloomed in the air, sterile and cold. Conquered ledger query, emotional yield assessment pending. She stiffened. They are monitoring. Of course they are, he said. You're a walking spreadsheet. That is not humorous. Give it a minute. The query expanded, asking questions no one was meant to answer quickly. Satisfaction indices, attachment variance. Reciprocity curves. She read them aloud, voice tightening. These metrics assume extraction. Yeah, he said. They hate it when nothing's missing. The ship interrupted. Advisory, prolonged ambiguity may trigger audit visitation. Tell them I'm busy, he said. With what? He gestured vaguely between them. This. She looked down at the space between their chairs, empty and unremarkable, and something in her posture loosened despite herself. You are intentionally degrading the process. Unintentionally, he said. It's a talent. The ledger pinged again, irritated now. The numbers on her wristband flickered, recalculating, then flickered harder. The ship hummed, confused in solidarity. She exhaled slowly. In my culture, time given without expectation is considered waste. In mine, he said, it's called Tuesday. Silence settled, not the scheduled kind, but the accidental sort that happens when nothing demands attention. The counter continued, stubborn and blind. Outside, the ledger flagged the interaction as anomalous, non-hostile, and statistically annoying. Inside the ship, two beings sat, eating identical regret blocks, while a system built on balance struggled to understand why nothing was being taken, and why that felt inexplicably like a loss. The audit drone arrived uninvited and offended, which was impressive given that it did not possess emotions, only preferences. It announced itself by dimming the lights and projecting a rotating emblem that suggested authority without explaining why. Please remain where you are, it said to an empty room. The human's voice drifted from the next compartment. Too late, I already moved emotionally. The drone paused, clarify. Can't, he said, still processing. She was seated at the table, wristband glowing in irritated amber. The counter had stopped counting up and begun blinking, as if time itself had developed a stutter. It is attempting a reconciliation scan, she said. That means the ledger thinks I am hiding value. Rude, he said, reappearing with a cup that steamed suspiciously. You look very transparent to me. That is not comforting. The drone extended a filament, scanning the air between them. Companionship contract detected. Emotional yield below projected baseline. Please identify obstruction. The human leaned back. Have you tried turning your expectations off and on again? Non-compliance noted. She shot him a look. You are escalating. Only conversationally. The filament retracted. Initiating targeted interaction prompt, the drone said. Subjects are encouraged to engage in meaningful exchange. She stiffened. This is a coercion technique. Watch this, he said. He turned to the drone. So, you come here often. The drone processed. Frequency irrelevant. See, he said, we're bonding. Her wristband flashed. The counter attempted to resume, overshot, then reset itself with a sound like quiet embarrassment. She stared at it. That should not happen. Neither should decaf, he said. Yet here we are. The drone recalibrated. Emotional markers inconsistent. No signs of depletion. No accumulation. State classified as lingering. Lingering, she repeated, "That is not a valid outcome." "Tell that to my laundry," he said. The drone hovered closer. "Please demonstrate transactional exchange." He thought for a moment, then slid his cup toward her. "Here, I made this. It's terrible. You can have it." She looked at the cup, then at him. "There is no requirement for you to give me this." "I know, nor any expectation of return." "Correct." She took it anyway. The moment she did, the drone emitted a sharp tone. "Unlogged transfer detected." "Don't panic," he said. "It's just hospitality." The drone began transmitting rapidly. "System advisory, value exchange occurring without measurable loss." Her skin flickered, light rippling in a pattern that suggested confusion edging into something warmer. "In my language," she said quietly, "this would be called imbalance." "In mine," he said, "it's called being nice." The drone's emblem fractured briefly. "This state is unsustainable." "Give it time," he said again. The drone withdrew unsettled, leaving behind a formal notice suspended in the air. Audit deferred due to unresolved parameters. She exhaled, long and slow. "You are dismantling an entire economic assumption." "By accident," he said. "I trip into these things." She looked at the cup in her hands, then at the blinking counter. "When this ends," she said, "I will still owe." "Maybe," he said, "but not to me." The counter blinked again, then, for the first time, ticked backward by a single second. They both stared. Somewhere far beyond the ship, the conquered ledger registered a negative adjustment, and for reasons it could not articulate, felt the faint urge to audit itself. The counter reached zero without ceremony. No chime, no flash. It simply stopped as if time itself had decided it had done enough for one contract. She noticed first. She always did. Her wristband dimmed, then went dark, its surface reflecting nothing but the room and the human standing in it, halfway through trying to fix a panel he had already broken twice. "It has ended," she said. He looked over his shoulder. "Huh. On schedule, that's rare." The ship waited, lights steady, systems calm. Outside, the stars continued their slow administrative drift. Inside, nothing rushed to replace what had been counting them forward for 2 months. The conquered ledger, less patient, made its move. The air tightened. A projection unfolded larger than before, its symbols rearranged with visible irritation. Debt status, unresolved. Obligation, indeterminate. Emotional yield. Non-quantifiable, she straightened, bracing for judgment. "I am prepared to negotiate an extension," she said carefully, "under revised terms." He wiped his hands on his shirt. "You don't owe me anything." "That is not how this works." "Maybe," he said, "but it's how I do." The ledger pulsed. "Resolution required." She looked at the projection, then at him. Her skin glowed softly now, not reacting, not signaling distress, just there. "If I do not pay," she said, "this mark will follow me." He shrugged. "Marks fade." "Not these." He considered that, then smiled the way he did when facing something unfixable with tools. "Then don't pay, close it." The ledger paused. "Closure requires equivalence." "Fine," he said, "here's mine." He stepped closer and tapped the projection with one finger. Time was